Hi, welcome to SBR TV. I'm Peter Loshak. This is our football opener show that we do every week with John Ryan. Today we're going to take a look at college football week 14 and NFL week 13. We are doing this on Tuesday morning, so the lines have matured a little bit, but we'll see what John has to say. John, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Peter. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah,
Good.
these last couple weeks have been pretty interesting from the public's sharp perspective and the book's perspective. Apparently, the public's been killing it, and the books have been getting beat by the public. Books that serve the public are getting beat, and like the sharps who come in with the number sweepers who pick off off numbers are supposedly getting beat as well.
Yes, I've heard. I've heard it's actually a fact that is occurring. But as you know, the public's not going to be right for an extended period of time.
Well, let's take a look at some of these college football Week 14 lines. There's some more lines that seem like, the lines that the public is going to bet that might be, good value. The first one is, Oregon minus 31.5 against UCLA. But last week we saw the UCLA-USC game we did in the experts roundtable. The experts said USC was a great bet at only minus 16. And of course it was. I watched that game and UCLA was just done. So I pounded the hell out of them in the second half line, which was an easy winner. Looking at this, Oregon minus 31.5. Should that be like much higher? Is that a good bet, you think?
I think it's a game you just kind of have to look at and almost laugh. I mean, I'm not making fun of the Pac-12, but this is their inaugural Pac-12 championship game, and they have a matchup where the one team's favored by 31.5. Not much of a title game in my eyes. I think the line will probably continue to climb as game day approaches.
I mean, I guess it's just mostly a matter of handicapping motivation. Does Oregon have the motivation to get an enormous win here, and does UCLA have the motivation to hang tight at all?
Well, as you know, the head coach of UCLA, Neuheisel, has been fired.
Right.
There's got to be some tremendous chemistry problems on the UCLA squad, problems in the locker room, I would guess, to make a decision this late in the season.
All right, well, we'll see. And then the other line people have been talking about heavily is Georgia LSU. LSU is another team that's been a huge favorite in all their games. Won all of them, covered most of them. Now they're 13 points. They opened minus 13 against Georgia. The game is being played in the Georgia Dome, though. There's a lot of people speculating, though, that LSU minus 13 is just a great line here. You think this line will close over 14?
Yeah, I actually do, Peter. Last week's game against Arkansas, where they kind of were sleepwalking there in the first quarter, 14-0 Arkansas, and you think, oh boy, here we go. And then all of a sudden you look up and it's a complete blowout.
Yeah.
I don't think Georgia can match up against that LSU defense. That defense is just, balls to the wall good.
Yeah.
And I just don't see how Georgia can really stand up against them for 4 quarters.
Balls to the wall. Yeah.
Go.
But, I mean, it's at the Georgia Dome, though. Is that a home field advantage for Georgia?
Yeah, I think so. But I also think there's going to be a tremendous support for Louisiana State as well. It clearly is a home field advantage for Georgia, but I don't think it's going to make a difference in the game.
So you think this will close over 14?
At 14 or higher, yep.
Yeah. All right, then what about Michigan State, Wisconsin? That's on a neutral site. Should Michigan State really be a 9-point dog here, or you think this line will close at 7 maybe?
I think it'll probably stay about where it is, in my opinion,
you
Peter.
Think?
This is a pretty good line here. A lot of people are surprised, and people I talked to, that this line opened as high as it did.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Wisconsin wins this game convincingly.
And you think this line doesn't go down to 7?
No, I don't. I think, if anything, it'll move the other way around after the way Wisconsin's been playing.
You think it could get to 10, huh?
Yep.
There you go. And then what about Virginia Tech Clemson? Clemson's been kind of like, fumbling around a little bit the past few weeks, but this is, in a neutral site, 7.5-point underdog. You think this line will maybe close at 6.5?
Again, I think it's going to stay above 7.
Okay.
I do think Virginia Tech is the better team. Clemson does seem to be, they're not a team that's going through a bad time. I think they're actually now just realizing that, the shock of it that, hey, we're not the number 5 team in the BCS rankings anymore, and we're fighting for our lives here just to win the ACC title, which is an honor. But matched up against Virginia Tech, I don't see that being an upset type of game.
Let me ask you this, John Ryan. I mean, you know every aspect of football handicapping, right?
Well, We learn every day, Peter.
All right. At this point in the season, how valuable is an off week to a college team? Because there's two sides that I would love to take this week, but they're both going up against a team that's off of a bye, and they're not. And that's Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma's a 3.5-point underdog, but Oklahoma State is off of a bye, an extra week of rest. And then Iowa State at Kansas State. Iowa State is a 10.5-point underdog. I'd love to take them, but Kansas State is off of a bye. So how important is that factor?
I think at this time of the year it is important, but I think it's already factored in the line.
Yeah.
I think the only reason Oklahoma State is favored by 3 is because they had the bye week to prepare for Oklahoma.
Right.
On paper, I have Oklahoma vastly better than Oklahoma State. That doesn't mean it translates into the final score.
Right.
But I think that is the single dominant reason that Oklahoma State is favored. And I think the same thing applies to the Iowa State K-State game as well.
All right. And so what do you think about that Bedlam line? You think it'll get down to 3 or 2.5 even?
I think the public will eventually come in on Oklahoma. And it might not be the public either. It might be the sharp money. I think I'll take that back. I think actually the sharp money will support the Sooners because they are the better team.
Okay. And then finally, the last game I want to ask about is Texas at Baylor. Texas, of course, has been a team that has underperformed this year, but they have been, at a certain point when people wrote them off, then they sort of became too much of an underdog, and they came back and got a couple covers. Now they're Baylor at -2.5, and I see that line is already juiced at Pinnacle up to -117. So I'm thinking that line might close at 3.5. What do you think?
Well, I've already published this as a 5-star play on
Really?
Texas.
Really?
This is by far, so far this week, this is my favorite play. Texas has one of the best defenses in the country.
Yes.
Baylor can't stop anybody. Several weeks ago, they played a team called Kansas, who doesn't have a ranking in the FBS in their statistical accomplishments under 100 offensively. And Baylor found themselves down 24-7 as 20-point favorites to Kansas.
Okay.
You can't do that against Texas.
John Ryan, more recently than that, Baylor played a team called Oklahoma, and they beat them. What do you make of that?
I knew you'd bring that up. Yes, they did. That was the next week.
Right.
So in that situation, maybe Baylor, they won in overtime against Kansas. Maybe they got caught looking ahead to the Oklahoma game. But still, even in that game, that was a game where Oklahoma was flat. And overall, Oklahoma did move the ball against Baylor. It wasn't like a dominating performance. Now, another point would be Texas, has 4 quarterbacks, and they have not made a decision all year long on who the starting quarterback is going to be. I don't care who the quarterback is. Peter, we can put you under center against Texas,
Really?
and they will rush the ball for 250 or more yards.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
In past situations, Baylor has not done well at all against strong running teams with excellent defenses.
All right, let's move on to NFL Week 13, all right?
You got it.